It's 6:51 a.m. here in Western New York, and I'm going to smack you on a Sunday morning. There are a lot of discussions and discourse around this new album by JID, God Does Like Ugly. Well, one of the most common questions is, did this album disappoint? Is JID top 5 right now as far as MCs go? Has he finally arrived? Is the album a masterpiece? But the question that interests me the most is it conceptual? Is this album conceptual enough, perhaps, to be considered a masterpiece? I've been having a lot of conversations with a lot of people who you probably know if you watch my channel. Other people talk a lot about hip-hop on YouTube. And that's been the main topic. Sort of like, does it really have that breadth and depth? Does it have that concept? And it's my intention to share with you how I see the album as being extremely conceptual, but perhaps subtly, and maybe too subtly. You see, I think this album is pretty incontestably a Christian rap album. The most common theme on it is God and the church and sinning and repenting. But most importantly, it is my favorite kind of Christian art, or my favorite kind of Christian anything, which is that it's non-evangelical. I don't think this album particularly cares about saving your soul, but I think it is an album about souls. I think it is a theological album, which, to define that term, theological is anything about the nature of God or religious belief. That's what theology is. And it's all right there in the title. I mean, the first word of the title is God. God does like ugly, which is in and of itself an inversion of a Southern idiom, God does not like ugly. And I think it means a lot. And I think this is the deeper meaning. I think this is where we have to start. Now, there's a lot of big questions that come up in this album that I think it's about. In particular, I think it's about Christianity and a particular kind of American Christianity. That's the way that I'm inviting you to interpret this as a concept album, as a condemnation of American Christianity. Thank you for auditing the Always Positive New Music Review Show, hosted by an American who is also a Christian. I am an actual son of a preacher man. My dad was a minister before I was born, but it still counts, trust me. And I think the question that this album makes me think is, what does God like? What does he, she, it, I'm just going to use he for the sake of simplicity and the history of patriarchy. What does he like? How does he show favor? What does he like? And then how does he show what he likes? In particular, how does God show favor in America? You see, we do have a theology. America does have a theology. America does have a belief. And there are many different denominations, many different kinds of preachers, kinds of churches that are informed by, or perhaps polluted by, if you don't think it's a good idea, something called prosperity gospel, also known as prosperity theology. The basic principle is this: financial wealth and physical health are gifts from God to those who deserve them. If you are rich, it is because God chose you to be rich. Now, you must believe in God in order to receive these blessings. But also, if you're poor or unhealthy, it's your fault. You deserve it. God doesn't want you to have those things. You are not faithful enough to God to receive those blessings. Now, a lot of things I'm going to be saying here are informed by someone named Kate Bowler. Bowler? I think it's Bowler, Bowler. She wrote a book called Blessed, A History of the American Prosperity Gospel. She's a professor of divinity at Duke, not the last college named after a fairly ghoulish figure. And the thing about the prosperity gospel that's so interesting is that it arose in the 19th century. I guess it's not that interesting. A lot of American religious stuff arose in the 19th century. But it's really based, as America was getting more wealthy, this wealth prosperity, this prosperity gospel was growing. In particular, I want to draw your attention to Russell Conwell and his speech, his sermon, Acres of Diamonds. Russ Conwell, who founded Temple University. So there you go. There's 2 universities in a row. And in this speech, which is very well known, it's a pretty interesting sermon. It's pretty good, actually. It's very well written, very interesting. But I want to quote something in here that historian Howard Zinn was particularly keen on pointing out to you. These are exact quotes from one of the most influential prosperity gospel figures, one of the founders of the thinking. This is what he says. "I say that you ought to get rich, and it is your duty to get rich. The men who get rich may be the most honest men you find in the community. Let me say here clearly, 98 out of 100 of the rich men of America are honest. That is why they are rich. That is why they are trusted with money. That is why they carry on great enterprises and find plenty of people to work with them. It is because they are honest men. I sympathize with the poor, but the number of poor who are to be sympathized with is very small. To sympathize with a man whom God has punished for his sins is to do wrong. Let us remember there is not a poor person in the United States who was not made poor by his own shortcomings." Let's make that clear. If you are poor, it is because God does not like you. So, my parents, my dad and my mom were born with enough money in their family to be able to go to private schools and to go to a college. So they're better than your parents, if your parents were not born like that. Okay? Does that sound right to you? I don't know. I heard of a guy who's like a failed businessman, and he was born into just millions of dollars, But he was kind of a sketchy guy. And he's good because he was born rich. If God doesn't like you, it's because not even that you didn't work hard enough, it's that you don't deserve to be rich. Now, this is all tied in together to another basic, very American idea, the power of positive thinking, which was also devised by a preacher, Pastor Norman Vincent Peale, who was Nixon's official pastor and was the Trump family's pastor as well. All of this kind of thinking, this correlation between salvation and God's favor and being rich is so ingrained in our society that I don't even think we see it all the time. But it makes sense when you think about televangelists, because they get very rich. So they obviously have to justify their own wealth. So what better way of showing that you are favored by God than by having a private jet? Right? You did it. Congratulations. God loves you. It's not that the tax system is broken. People like Joel Osteen, a.k.a. Haley Joel Osteen. It is God's will for you to live in prosperity instead of poverty. It is God's will for you to pay your bills and not be in debt. Or another prosperity gospel, who is a prosperity preacher who is present at the 2016 inauguration of Trump, Paula White. Now, what's interesting and nefarious about this whole system is that it's very popular with rich people, obviously, right? So, oh, great. I don't have to worry about passing through, I don't have to worry about being a camel passing through the eye of a needle to get into heaven. Like, I am chosen by God, I am preferred. But it's also very popular amongst the poor and the working class. It's popular because it provides some kind of, masochistic push to be better and to do better, no matter how much the cards are stacked against you. That's the backdrop that I see as informing this album. In a way, I think it's very similar or a good companion piece to the recently deceased album by Ka, The Thief Next to Jesus, where he's sort of attacking Christianity, but he's doing that as saying that it's encouraging you to accept your poverty. That's his argument there, that religion teaches us to have nobility in poverty. This is a little bit the opposite of that. So let's think about this prosperity gospel and the way that it has infected American thinking, because it is a very American way of thinking. It has been exported. You're welcome, world. But it was born here. It comes from here. It feels like here. It feels like something that we would think up of in our society. And what do we do with that when we think about the poor, who are victims of generational trauma and systemic inequality, in particular systemic racism? If the prosperity gospel is real, and it is extremely popular and extremely believed in, what does that say about the poor in America? What are the further implications in our country of those who are descendants of slavery, descendants of enslaved people? These ideas were formulated while slavery still existed. They were developed and spread throughout the Reconstruction when people lived in virtual slavery. They were made even more popular during the Jim Crow era and after World War II, when everyone got a fair shake, except for the people who were not allowed to buy houses and had unequal access to jobs and creating generational wealth. This kind of gospel removes the responsibility from the government and puts it squarely on the people themselves who are victims of the government's actions, who are victims of society's actions. So how does that tie into the title? We are talking about JID. This is not just a political rant, but if you like what you see, smash like bucket, subscribe. AVAA stands for awesome video as always. The sun's rising. I appreciate that. It's nice light. Thank you. How does that tie in? Well, it's the question of what does God like? That's what the prosperity gospel is about. God likes you if you're rich. This is where I should probably just throw in my caveat, as Justin Hunt says about anyone who is not a Black American, talking about the Black American art of hip-hop. I lack the perspective to properly contextualize this album and a lot of the things I'm going to be speaking on. I'm a visitor to hip-hop. I am not a member. I am an observer. I'm trying to be a kind tourist. I'm trying to be an academic. Okay, so I don't pretend to contain any lived experience or expertise. I should also say that JID, in an interview with Complex, said that God does like ugly. He got the idea from his grandmother, who was watching TV and saw something bad happen and said, "I guess God does like ugly. You need to make that the name of one of your albums." That's what she said to him. Okay, so that's the official explanation of why the album is called that. But I think it goes deeper, or I think that's how deep it is, but it also goes in another direction. So God does like ugly itself is a weird expression if you're like me and you're from the North, because it's an inversion of a Southern expression. God don't like ugly is nothing I have ever heard in my entire life. Okay, there's a JPEG Mafia song called it, all right? But beyond that, I have never heard that expression in my life. I've never heard anybody say that, because it's a Southern expression. That's something that is said in the South. Now, depending on where you look up, I've seen some people say it is a general Southern expression. Other people say it is a Black Southern American expression. I don't know. How would I know? I'm a white Northerner, okay? Go Red Sox, all right? That's my answer to you is go Red Sox. That's how Northern I am. But it's a fascinating expression that I think is worth studying because of the inversion that is in the title. I think it is a response to both a literal interpretation of this quote, God don't like ugly, and a figurative meaning of this quote. And that's the thing. If you're like me and you're not from the South, if you've never heard this term before, except in a JPEG Mafia song, it's a jarring thing because you think of ugly and you think ugly, like UGLY. You do not have an alibi. You're ugly. You're ugly. That's what I think of. I think of what people used to call me. Okay? So that's the literal physical ugliness. And that's not fun. Who likes to think of God not liking you because you are physically unattractive when God is who made you unattractive? I am as God made me, You know that expression? But that is sort of in the Bible, depending on which part of the Bible you read. I'm going to read from Leviticus right now. 7:06 a.m. and I'm reading Leviticus on a Sunday. Here we go. The Lord said to Moses, "Say to Aaron, for generations to come, none of your descendants who has a defect may come near to offer food of his God. No man who has any defect may come near. No man who is blind, lame, disfigured, or deformed. No man with a crippled foot or hand, or who is a hunchback or a dwarf, who has any eye defect, who has a festering or running sores, or damaged testicles." It's rough enough if you got damaged testicles. Now you can't even see God? If he has a defect, he must not come near to offer food of his God. I am the Lord who makes them holy. So that's not a good look. That's not a good look. That's essentially saying if you are not physically well, if you are deformed in any way, then you are distanced from God. So that's the literal meaning of God does not like ugly. But that's not actually what it's about. That's not actually the way that the expression is used. The expression is used in a figurative sense to refer to ugliness as being moral ugliness, behavioral ugliness. Being bitter, being jealous, doing things that are illegal or immoral, being a criminal or being dishonest, like ugly, like acting ugly. And it makes sense because, that's in the Bible. That's in the Bible. That's in the Bible. It's not. It's not in the Bible. God, nowhere does it say God does not like ugly. In my research, I found a beautiful passage from somebody. I'm going to be quoting a couple preachers right now. I don't know everything that these preachers say, so if they say some stuff that I don't agree with, you can tell me in the comments, but, I found things I do agree with. So a guy named Kirkland A. Smith from the Grace Bible Fellowship of Antioch described the sort of paradox of the ways that we talk about religion and how we accept things as being a part of the Bible that are not. And here's a quote from Kirkland A. Smith. The Bible said cleanliness is next to godliness, and that a man ain't got a house, ain't got a home. When I became a student of the Word, I was looking and never found that stuff. Found out they was just passing on faulty tradition. The Bible said God don't like ugly, but the Bible don't say that. It really doesn't. So we've taught that the church is a building when the church is people. And in the Bible, it has always been portrayed as people. I just want you here on a Sunday morning to think about this idea of the church being people. It's true. The church is people. It's not a building, and it's not even a book, and it's not even necessarily a word. It's people. We're the ones who create this religion, who create these words, who have this fellowship, etc. So that's what makes it interesting. God don't like ugly is an interpretation that Southern Christians came up with as a way to express what they perceive of as being biblical values that are not actually in the Bible. So these ugly things, anger, cruelty, jealousy, criminality. Now, in defense of this idiom, I saw another interesting preacher, another online preacher, Dr. Darius Daniels, where how he describes ugly as ungoverned. And I really enjoyed this, actually. I'm going to be quoting him now. He, meaning God, wants me to have the governed life because the ungoverned life is unattractive to God. He loves you too much to take pleasure in behavior that is sabotaging your future. It does not mean unloved. God can love me and not like that. So I like that. I like that idea, that in this expression, it's not actually damnation. It is just saying that you do not have God's favor, even if you still have God's love. So let's tie this all back. What does it mean to go against this saying? First of all, subverting a Southern American, potentially black Southern American expression. I just don't know the history. I've looked up the history of it. I do not have an answer for you as to the actual origin point of this expression. I mean, given American history, it's probably safe to imagine that if something interesting and creative was made, that it was probably first by Black American culture and then appropriated by the white American culture. But who knows? So to subvert that is an interesting idea. It's fairly provocative. And what I think is important is that all those things that I said are ugly, this album is saying that God does like them, which makes sense when you actually step back and think about this album that is extremely religious, that is filled with sinners. Oh, by the way, I finally saw that movie. It was great. I do not appreciate you guys who said I'm like, what was his name? Remick? I understand what that means now. I'm Scottish, not Irish. It's filled with sinners, repenters, recidivists, inmates, criminals, criminality. And what I think it's trying to do is trying to say that not only does God love you, But God likes you, even if you're one of those people. Even if you're somebody who has been ugly or who does ugly. The ex-cons, the people in jail, the poor people from his home. Okay? God likes you. It is a societal point. It is a socio-political point as well. Because all of these people who the American prosperity gospel has told us have earned their poverty. The ugliness that is being described is very much a result of that poverty. You don't need to rob somebody if you're rich. You just don't have to. I mean, some people do. Hey, some of them do. And I mean, that's how they get richer. But you don't have to. That's the deeper concept of the album. If you are ugly, God still favors you, which is what makes this my favorite kind of Christian art, because it is about God's mercy, not about God's judgment. It's not that Leviticus stuff. It's not that Old Testament stuff, which I don't always jibe with, you know? It's that New Testament stuff. It's subtle. This theme is subtle, but I'm going to pull it out and show it to you where I see it. God loving ugly. From the first track to the middle to the end, it is all the way throughout, and especially in the song that I consider to be the center point of the album, the most important part of the album. And you're sitting there saying, oh, community? Oh, you ugly? Oh, from Blue? Geez. Geez, I think, is the center point. But before we get there, let's have a little more fun. How far am I into this video? 21 minutes. If you're still with me, love it. I mean, the sun is doing a lot of work for me right now. It is beautiful. It's like right there. It's rising up. Let's go to these sort of more general questions about JID. Is he next up? What does this guy have to do? He's been here. He already has, by my count, 2 classic albums, and this is a third. I'm sort of obsessed. I think JID is not seen as being here, as arriving. He is constantly being seen as the rapper of the future, and he always will be, because of his voice and his name. You know, he got his name because I believe that same grandmother called him Jittery, because he's jittery, and he is jittery. That's his style, jittery, raps fast, right? And he's got that kind of high voice. And even though the man is 34 years old, all right, I had a 9-year-old kid by the time I was 34. I can tell you, 34 years old is pretty old. That's old. That's a lot of life. That's a lot of mortgages. That's a lot of tax payments, all right? He's not a kid. He's a man. Jesus was a man. He's a man. But I think because his style is so young, because his voice is so young, that we have this perception of him. I mean, seriously, picture JID. If he rapped like this, you know, you'd be like, man, you sound terrible. But also, I don't know. But I think not only is he here, he has been here. But the problem is we're expecting superstars. But we'll get there in a second. You know, is he next up? Well, I think he is, because he does everything. He's political, religious, personal, does songs for the clubs, songs for the streets, songs for intellectual rap nerds. He is an amazing lyricist. He is what is that thing that Dupley came out with, his 7 levels of rappers? You know, what is that thing? It's good. I mean, I watched Screwface Jean watch it. I didn't actually watch it. I should watch it so he gets the clicks too. But it's really good. You know, I think he's a level 7 rapper here. I think he is. Different flows, different voices, speed up, slow down, double entendre, complete mastery. He can go too far. He can go not far enough. I watched an interview with him. I think it was with Bootleg Kev, maybe. I don't know. It was, you know, it was on YouTube Shorts, so you can't tell where anything's from. But it was asking him to give his top 5. And he said something where he put Outkast in his top 5 MCs. And he just says Outkast is 1. Does that make sense to you? To me, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that makes sense with how he raps. I think he's sort of trying to be a one-man Outkast. Also, in the interview cycles and on the album, he talks a lot about not caring about beef. And that the way that you beef, unless you have a real problem with somebody, is to collaborate. Like, if you want to have that competition in rap, collaborate with somebody, record a track with them, and see who wins. And this year, let me give you names of some rappers who he destroyed in competition. Freddie Gibbs, Ab Soul, Eminem, twice. One home game, one away game. He beat him in Detroit and in Atlanta. All right? Seriously. Seriously. And more than that, this is just me. But there's nothing I dislike on this album. There's no like rampant misogyny. There's drug usage, and even some messages of drug abuse, but it's not glorifying it. There's no like gratuitous violence. It's just filled with like honesty and descriptions and stories. He's an amazing storyteller. He just does so much. Like for those of you who are saying like I'm not sure he's there yet, what does there look like? And who is doing it meaningfully better than him? Okay? There are people who are doing it better than him, but who would you say is like the next level up? I don't think anybody. I think there are people who are better than him at his level, but I don't think there's a level above him. Should also be mentioned, it's a fairly anti-capitalist album, which is nice. I think the rollout is an interesting question. I've been watching some other YouTubers who I really like. Read My Soul and Kiki have a sort of interesting back and forth, but they both did spoke about this rollout, and I just want to thank them because they lowered my expectations, and I think maybe that really helped because I was like super excited for the album, and then they both came out being like, I think Dreamville's screwing this up, and J. Cole's doing all these bad things, and I'm like, you know what? This isn't going to be that good, and then I press play and my mind are blown. I think maybe there could be some disappointment here because the first 6 songs are perfection. Just perfection. Just like if you love rap music and you hear the first 6 songs of this album, you are just a happy human being. you are a pig in slop. You're just rolling around, just all these wordplay, beat changes and flow changes and guest appearances. You are just so happy. And then it changes the vibe and gets kind of more R&B. Here's a thought experiment for you. What if the 4 like R&B songs were swapped out for those 4 songs from the Prelux? All of a sudden, I think, I don't know. Or what if the entire album was the first 6 songs and then those 4 songs from the Prelux? I don't know. I think if that happened, a lot of people would be saying, is this album better than Let God Sort 'Em Out? But because it gets kind of diluted or larger in scale with those R&B songs, that kind of doesn't happen. The production on here is amazing, and as far as I could tell, it is mostly just people who he's worked with before and who he knows, and fellow producers from Atlanta, Childish, and all these like names, but they're not like names. Christo, I think does a lot of it. Great beat selection, great beat changes, and I think a lot of this ties in together by this. If we ask, has he made it? And if the answer is no, I think it might be part of this prosperity gospel thing. Because you can also say that like superstardom is being chosen by God. I think there's a huge part of this album that is about JID's position in the music industry. How he is very firmly in what Read My Soul talks about as being the missing middle class. He is the middle class. He is the perfect example of a middle class rapper. And I think if we keep on asking, is he going to make it? Is he going to be in the level of Drake or 2003 Eminem or Kendrick Lamar in 2024? Is he going to be a superstar? We're never going to really actually appreciate what he is, which is just like an absolutely amazing rapper. There's some part of us, I think, that blames him for our inability to appreciate what he does. By our, I mean like the mainstream rap consumer. They're like, we're not capable of doing it. We can't do it. I don't know why, but we can't make him a superstar. And so that's his fault, I guess. He wasn't chosen by God like Drake was. When I think about all this religious stuff, also, I think it's pretty important to see in the context of Kendrick and the Watch the Party Die. I feel like when the history books are written about this period of hip hop, I think Watch the Party Die is going to be a very big chapter. Because a lot of this idea of not just Christianity and Christian rap, but like finding some kind of deeper function and purpose of rap music is important, and you have to let the party go. We have clips, let God sort them out. We have this, excuse me. We have clips, let God sort them out. We have this, God does like ugly. Like any good academic, I sort of went through YouTube making sure nobody said what I'm saying in this video. The closest was Jalopy Bungus, who has a really nice video about this religious shift in hip-hop. He sort of ties it all back to Cat Williams. It's pretty interesting. I suggest you go watch it. But I see it more in this spiritual way more than necessarily a Christian way. And in that way, I find it similar to Kendrick. It's a very GNX-y album. Gloria and the Heart Part 6 are smushed into one song at the end there. It's a lot about joy. It's a lot about regionality. And even more specifically, the idea of embracing and loving the ugly parts of your community is something, the ugly, right? Is something that Kendrick Lamar has been doing at least since, I don't know, the cover of To Pimp a Butterfly or The Pop Out, or putting Kodak Black all throughout his album, or collaborating with Playboi Carti. Like the political importance of being a respected, elevated figure in American culture as an African American, and then say, these people are my equal. These people come from where I come from. These people have made different choices. They are my brothers. They are my sisters. If you appreciate me, you must appreciate them. God does like ugly is sort of how I read what Kendrick does when he gets Kodak Black on there. Okay? So let's talk about my experience listening to this album. It was amazing. You know, it was an amazing experience. I pressed play. I just cut up some apricots for my 3-year-old and my 1-year-old. Cut up some apricots, some raspberries, blueberries, gave him some whole yogurt. You know, good stuff. And I cut up the fruit. I'm sitting there, I'm making the coffee, and I press play. And by the way, I used to hate it when people would hide the features. I now want always to hide the features because you are so tempted to jump ahead. When you see a feature list, to jump ahead to the features that interest you, don't do that. Just go in blind. Just press play. The first thing I hear is Fly God. Like, Fly God, what is going on with this beat? Why is West Side Gun talking about his woman not being attractive? What is going on here? Why is this a Griselda album? Why is this a West Side Gun project? And I totally didn't understand it and totally understood it at the exact same time. And then the beat changes to this crazy fast drum bit. Best beat on the album, by the way. Best beat on the album by far is this horror movie style rising whine. And I'm sitting there and I'm getting the cutting board and putting the apricots onto my daughter's plates. Live from the depths of hell with angel wings that have yet to flail. So heaven and hell, angel wings, right there. We're in the theology of the album already. And fans argue about record sales like they record exec themselves. It's like we all under a spell, and still I hope this message reaches you well. It's joy, okay? Like, this is the thing that I understand. Not everything is for everybody, okay? But the thing that great human creation does for me is it makes me feel joy. It makes me feel when I see a beautiful building, when I see a beautiful car, when I watch a great movie, when I hear music, especially, mostly when I hear music, when I hear I don't know, Mozart's Clarinet Concerto, the second movement, and it brings me to tears every single time. I feel this sense of joy at human creation. They're like, we did this, people. Hooray. Look at what we made. Look at what we're able to put on the earth. That's how good this was, this opening lyric. And it's all tied into these larger themes. Okay? He says something that needs to be said in a way that can be heard and understood. He is talking about the way that we devalue art by talking about money. He's talking about art. We're talking about art, and you're talking to me about money. Get bumped. Get all the way bumped with your opening box office. That's money. I consume, buddy. That's money. We're not in the business of money. We're in the business of talking about art. That's what he's talking about. And when he goes after people for studying the opening week sales, he taps into something so deep and so important. This mentality, this division, this algorithmically driven teams that we all divide. Listen, I grew up reading Batman, so I don't really care that much about Marvel Comics. I like Marvel Comics, but I love DC Comics. And every time a DC movie comes out and a Marvel movie comes out, all the nerds get on their team. They get on their red coats and their blue coats, and they go onto the internet and they fight and they argue over numbers. Fantastic Four earned more money than Superman. Fantastic Four earned more money than Superman. Yay! Kendrick outsold Drake. Whip-de-doo! Who cares? We're talking about art. A-R-T, human creation. Art is the greatest argument for human dignity in the face of a cold, uncaring capitalistic hellscape. And we are allowing it. We are going to talk about the first week numbers of JID. And we are going to say whether or not he has made it, whether or not he is a superstar, based on whether or not one of these songs can do better than What Did I Miss by Drake. That's going to be the metric by which we determine the success of this artist. We've lost. We've lost. We've lost to the prosperity gospel. If a great artist is a great artist but isn't number one, is he still a great artist? No, because he wasn't chosen by God. He wasn't made rich. But what I love in this whole verse is his positioning. From the depths of hell, angel wings, fans argue about they recording sex themselves. I love that because it's true. It's how we've become, and I'm just as guilty of this as anybody. I love this stuff. Box Office Mojo is one of my favorite websites. I've been there so many times. Every time Justin Hunt, company man, smack yourself in the face. Every time he comes out with his chart report, ew, yuck, gross, I pay attention to it. We all pay attention to it. But it's like we're under a spell. That's what he says. We are under a spell. We are under a capitalistic spell that equates artistic value with financial remuneration by blessings from God. But he ends it with, I wish you well. He wishes us well, even if we are snowed in, duped, hoodwinked, okay? He is observant. He is upset. He is incisive, but he is also compassionate and empathetic. He wishes us well. And immediately after those lines, he goes into God does like ugly and I could tell. So that's the other meaning. So that's taking God does like ugly and I could tell and saying that if God does like ugly, it's that all those things are ugly and that is how they are rewarded for their ugliness. Living check to check, check the mail, another bill, pimp my brother, ain't even get no bail on his third strike, and if he serve life, them crackers probably like, that serves you right. Okay? You see how it's all kind of falling into place here? The same verse where he talks about record sales, he ends with the unjust policy of 3 strikes and you're out. of some American states who throw people in jail for life if they commit 3 infractions, even if one of those 3 is fairly minor. Okay, the criminal justice system, which is severely broken and is disadvantageous to the African American population in a way that would be comical if it was not so tragic. By comical, I mean like it's outrageous. It is so outrageously terrible, and we all know it, and it's been happening, and we just sort of permit it to happen. It's so inconceivable, and that's what he's describing here. My brother ain't even get no bail on his 3rd strike, and if you serve him life, it serves you right. Goes back to that same idea of what do you deserve, serves them right. Who does God favor? Well, it turns out, in a lot of people's theology, God favors the same people that society favors. So if you have been pushed into, or if you choose a life of crime due to your circumstances, you deserve that. It serves you right. Whew, my God. Is it conceptual? I think it is. That's the point of this review. And the whole like track is like a microcosm of the album, because it goes between this kind of super tough rap into basically gospel. They tip the scale. If there's a way, then there's a will. Using word, doing weight, moving just like Adele. Far cry from bugs and cereal boxes on the shelves. Now I order escargot on the plate. It's a fucking snail. Just so you know, little service announcement, I am a French professor. Escargots are delightful. But let me tell you the truth about escargot. It is just a means to eat butter and garlic. Okay? So they just take the shell and they dump it filled with butter and garlic, and then you just eat the snail as well. It's great. But like that's the question. Like finding a bug in your cereal is bad. Eating a snail is good. The strange nature of like what is good and what is bad, what is rich, what is poor. The beat gets more and more aggressive until this beat change, this gospel interlude with like these little snaps and a trumpet, and then the whole song resets with another West Side Gun interlude. Now the beat's a little bit more ominous, a little bit more rhythmic complexity, a crazy flow change with these internal rhymes and more of a closed mouth flow. He makes a Paul Walker joke. Too soon. I hate to be a jerk, but like, obviously the human loss of Paul Walker is terrible because he was a human being, even if I don't love his acting. But the fact that led to that terrible Wiz Khalifa song, I mean, that's tragedy on tragedy. That is easily one of my least favorite songs of all time. He makes reference to the Fibonacci sequence. Fibonacci couldn't stop me. I wrote a paper in my math class that I took in college, and it was a paper about the Fibonacci sequence, and I called it Fibonacci Couldn't Stop Me, based on the Ghostface Killah line. Was it Kobayashi couldn't stop me? There's some line like that. Anyways, and then he's able to get kind of simple. Whole bunch of bars, no hold bars, don't hold back, show those scars. That's what he's doing. He's showing his truth. He's showing his life. Being a badass kid. It's JID with his friends playing Mario Kart. Humanizes himself. And then West Side Gun closes out here. And what I think is important about West Side Gun being on this album is that, again, it kind of goes into the ugliness thing, right? He is sort of... He embodies a lot of that ugliness. Rapping about criminality and rapping about money and rapping about what's going to happen next to the Eiffel Tower. And I think it's important that he is not keeping people out. He's not. He is not taking members of his community and saying, you are not okay. He's keeping sort of open arms. And the last line is get to church. That's the last line from West Side Gun. Get to church, which leads into Glory. And this whole album is just back and forth, commenting about our society, talking about God. Commenting about society, talking about God. Almost chipmunk-style gospel here. The beat comes in halfway through the first verse. Crazy opening. Early in the morning, got sun in my eyes. Give it glory to God. I'm alert and alive. I ain't even sleep, but I'm working hard. I'm tired. I'm not going to turn me from my assignment. So he's talking about his drive. He's talking about his desire to be some great rapper and to make great art. And then he tells a story about a sinner. Okay? And he said in the Complex interview, the person who he's talking about is his own brother, the same brother who was just mentioned as being in jail. And it's a pretty interesting verse because it talks about the way that that when he got baptized, the water got warmer. He's this really crucial figure in the story. As he said in Complex, when one of your family members goes to jail, it's like your entire family member goes to jail. Now, the thing is this. My socioeconomic situation is such that I don't know anybody in jail, and I don't know anybody whose family members have been in jail. Anybody. Zero. Nobody. I lack the perspective to properly contextualize this album. Okay? It's a numbers game. Given the injustices of our criminal justice system, that's a rarity. Like that's pretty wild. It's pretty wild, but that's totally true. I don't know anybody who knows anybody. I do know people who should be in jail. I do know people who've committed crimes. I mean, like, crimes. Not like, crimes. I mean, like, crimes, who should be in jail and aren't. There must be something to that. Okay? And then he goes to himself. But I give to the Most High, millionaire, multi-talented, multitasking master, multifaceted, multi-functioning, standard, 45 caliber, 4-5 passengers. No life matters. When it matters, meet the pastor. Open the Bible up, try and read a chapter. I'm trying to free the shackles. My brother back inside a cell, so I just said a prayer. So he's just going all the way. He's like, I'm all these things. I'm trying to free the shackles, a kind of real freedom, the freedom that comes from spiritual salvation. My brother back inside a cell. Constantly. His favor. He is favored. JID is favored. And then his brother is not favored. Back and forth, he said a prayer. In the Garden of Eden, he said he couldn't help but eat the apple. I go back to that, the sermon. I'll include a link to it in the description by the Darius, Dr. Darius, who talked about how in the Garden of Eden, God didn't say he hates Adam and Eve. He just said, you don't get the best of me. You got to get out of here. You can't stay here. Right? Even after all this stuff, I'm at the chapel and it's natural. I know my foundation, build castles, even a statue, no limitation. It's a time capsule. I'm sending glory up to God to give it back to you casual. And that's what he's doing. He is giving us glory casual. He's not actually thumping the Bible. He's talking about Christianity and spirituality without thumping us over the head. And there's a whole speech here by the pastor who talks about how he looks like $1 million even though he isn't wearing Louis Vuitton. Okay? That's the point. It's not actually money. It's not actually money. You don't show that you're blessed by wearing expensive clothing. You show you're blessed by receiving God's love. It's kind of anti-capitalist in that way. It maybe drives at the fact that the idea that America has married free market capitalism to spiritual salvation is probably a bad idea. We should probably separate those things. The pastor himself, according to the Complex interview, I was a little bit confused because, he's not that, charismatic. He's saying some cool things, but he's restrained, when you think of a black Southern pastor, you would anticipate a level of theatricality that is not in this guy's voice. His voice is a lot more restrained. And it turns out it is his producer's dad. I don't know which producer, but his producer's dad. Shout out, another son of a preacher man. If you ever hear me clear my throat, by the way, that's the way my dad talked. He cleared his throat all the time. Hi. But that's it, right? That makes way more sense. He's not trying to outsource. He's getting somebody who he is in community with to be the preacher who's here. He got the choir to sing on this, and they didn't clear it because they were afraid of the things he was saying because he was swearing. So he took out all the swears, and then the choir went back and listened to all this music and called him and told him that they said a prayer over him And he talks about how meaningful that is. And I think that's a beautiful story. And I think that's the story of this album. I think it's the story of this album that the choir who sang in this was not sure if JID was properly pious enough, but then realized how much he was doing what they perceived to be God's work. Because again, oh, by the way, I'm Christian. I don't care if you are. I don't care at all. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything, but I am Christian. I do believe in all that stuff, right? That's what I believe in. What am I supposed to do? Baptized, confirmed, all that stuff. But like, he's like, this is the point of the album. The choir blessed me because of my work, because of the message that I am spreading. He's probably doing God's work. And he's doing it without you saying that he's trying to get you to change. And then we get to work. WRK, a little more commercial minded, got some horns on the 2 and the 4, put your ass up, but it's complex, it's well made. You couldn't stop my drive if it was 1955 and I'm on 85 doing 95 in a 52 Dodge. I don't know what that means, but it's awesome. I mean, I know what it means. He's like saying, I mean, if you go to Lyric Genius, it says that like the 85 wasn't even made until later. And then a 52 Dodge couldn't even drive that fast. I don't think it's that specific. I think he's just trying to say how driven he is, how hard he is to working. And this song feels to me like this is the pain of the fact that when people say, has JID made it? Everyone keeps saying no. No, JID has not made it yet. Sure, he's released 2 great albums, and he's internationally known to rock the microphone, and he's respected by anybody who cares about rap music, but nah, he hasn't made it yet. Why not? Because Certified Lover Boy moved 300,000 units in the first week. Yeah, I mean, just kind of do the math. Yeah, Some Sexy Songs for You is going to outsell this album. So this album kind of isn't successful. It doesn't work. Crazy vocalizing in the back. Great little interlude. And then it leads to Community featuring clips. Crazy awesome verse with this little guitar. And it's all about these apartments. You know, so if, like, apartment life. You know, I'm lucky. I see them on my deck. I live in a house. Most people don't live in a house, like in the world. Most people live in apartments. And it's a lot about the nature of the apartments where he grew up in Atlanta. I don't know if it's necessarily housing projects as much as they are small spaces that are communal that you do not own. Okay, that's what he's talking about. Small spaces in economically poor neighborhoods. I used a bad word. I don't like using the word poor, but I also don't like trying to figure out how to say disadvantageous more than once at 7:44 a.m. Yeah. And it's all about like these apartments and how the police don't care and how you need to get out. Like the goal, like, again, according to the prosperity gospel, people who live in apartments live there because God doesn't like them enough to put them in a house. Great guitar here, just kind of like one chord being played over and over again. We feel his anger as he talks about the beef, like he doesn't care about industry beef because people didn't care about his friend when he was shot in the street. Like there's actual conflict, actual pain, actual black suffering that goes uncared about, that goes unnoticed, and we're supposed to care because some millionaire said another millionaire hits his girlfriend. Pop, you thinking about Pac, I'm thinking, can't talk about shit you seen on Fox. You gotta chill. You gotta have the nerve. It'll make you strong if it don't kill you. I put a bullet in Bob the fucking Builder before they try and kick us out the building. Him trying to protect his space in this apartment. Him trying to protect his space. Claim the dignity of the space. Bob the Builder. Bob the Builder, peut-on le faire? Bob le Builder. Oui, on peut. I used to teach that in my French 2 class. Bob the Builder, I mean, I'm not going to go too far, but the image of the contractor is sort of an interesting one of kind of like a gentrifying force, like knocking over apartment buildings and putting up beautiful housing, you know? You know how it's kind of worked throughout the entire history of America, that the poor in general and poor black communities in specific always get displaced whenever it suits the larger white supremacist superstructure. That's actually how we got hip hop. When Robert Moses decided to put the Cross Bronx Expressway straight through the South Bronx, everybody who had money and could get out of the South Bronx did. Everyone who couldn't stayed there, and that's what ultimately led to the creation of this art that we are studying right now. It's because of Bob the Builder. and any time that it makes sense to sell an apartment building and build luxury condos, Bob the Builder comes in and knocks it over. So, I don't know. Maybe Bob the Builder deserves it. Props to Kevin and Johnny. Those are the people who have helped us, with this deck. Awesome people. One of them is the biggest Fast and Furious fan I know. I don't think he'd appreciate that Paul Walker line one bit. When I check a news channel, I get a similar feeling, but still, we gonna make it to heaven, high water, or hell. Giving it to Christ, I'd do it twice. It's just a Christian album. And then that leads straight into Pusha T. And Pusha T is so downbeat. The first time I listened to the album, this is true. The first time I listened to the album, I wasn't listening that closely. So I could tell that this wasn't JID, but I wasn't really focused on who it was. And then next, Malice came on. I'm like, oh, Malice is on this. And then I realized retroactively the person I heard, it's a very tame Pusha T, but who asks this great question: how are we supposed to process anger? All the anger that I've been describing in this very kind of cold way, the perspective that I lack to properly contextualize, given the systemic advantages of having parents who went to private school and a college and being able to afford a house and all the advantages I have, that has led me to I have anger at the government, but not of what's happened to me, but at what has been done on my behalf. You understand? That's a different kind of anger. So how are they supposed to process anger? Well, I guess one way is to make great art. And then Malice comes out. Listen, Rap Latte is one of the best hip-hop channels on YouTube. King Green is one of the best hip-hop commentators on YouTube. He and Toure, who is one of the greatest journalists in the history of hip-hop, have a discussion about this verse by Malice, describing why it is the verse of the year. Two people who do have the perspective to properly contextualize, so please just go watch that. My ghetto is not your culture. Really die here, somewhere, Jesus Shuttlesworth, some of us were Nasirs. This isn't true. My favorite basketball player before Marcus Smart was Ray Allen. And it was before he was even on the Celtics, because I liked He Got Game so much. That's Ray Allen's character in He Got Game. Very underrated movie, by the way. Never seen a father that was government devised here. That's the thing, right? So he's talking about these apartments, talking about Section 8, we treat it like a timeshare. He's talking about the ways that these apartments are, the way people come in and out, the way that the men have been taken off the streets and put into jail. It is government devised, the war on drugs, which disproportionately targeted black men in the 80s. It is literally government devised. The lack of black men in black spaces is government devised. And, you go on that Fox News that was mentioned earlier before, they'll talk about how it's the personal failings of the people. It's always the personal failings. It's not the system. It's the personal failings, which all kind of ties into the fact that God doesn't really like ugly. What's that thing that Conwell said, if you're poor, it's because God doesn't like you. You don't deserve sympathy. And then we get to G's, the actual centerpiece of the album, in my opinion, and my reading. A little catchy doo-dee. Little kind of fun thing here. They say you thugged out, gangsta, everybody bugged out, armed and dangerous, dranked and drugged out, anxious, ain't ya? Banged a banger. Tell them bitches stop playing with us. This is the perception of the ugly, the perception of the black Americans by the racist, systemically racist, white supremacist superstructure, pointing at people saying, you thugged out, gangsta. Very importantly, anxious ain't ya? The anxiety. Because in reality, this is not part of the stereotype. Part of the dehumanizing process is that when people are called thugs and gangsters, they are seen as being inhuman. And anxiety is a very human emotion, because that's the truth. Criminals are anxious. Killers and thugs and all of that, they're anxious. They feel a great anxiety too. I feel the anger all the way down to my ankles. He's tying it together to the last song where Pusha T talked about the anger. We're talking about anger now. Trying to keep ahead, so I keep one in the chamber. Put it to your head then. It's a self-annihilation line. Keep one in the chamber so he can keep it to his head. So in case he needs to, pop, pop, pop. Putting shit to bed, we all blessed, fed, and thankful. Putting shit to bed, he bled tears, shed painful. It's going to my head. Don't let that picture they paint you, reflection, turn deception to your brain. The ways perceived, the way they're perceived of. Don't let that get to your head. Understand that you're blessed, even if you have not received prosperity. Shoddy, you thugged out. They say you too tough. Exterior black, ugly and rough. Inferior to shirt and ties with a tux. Temperature, fuck it. He's sick, he tired, he turned shit up. Bad wire's not a bad guy. You know how black lives don't matter. Uncomfortable. We see the data and the pattern apply. Don't feel pity. Throw a party. Pass me the mic. I'm thinking Martin was wrong. Malcolm was right. So much here. So much here. Bad wires, but not a bad guy. This is a lot about that. Are these ugly people, the people who are doing these ugly things, is it because that's the way society has created it, or is it because it is their nature? This is going back and forth about this debate is in this song. Martin was wrong, Malcolm was right. Now what's interesting is, and most people know this by now, which is good. I just want to say, by the way, congratulations to Civilization for seeing that Sydney Sweeney shit and calling it out immediately. Man, back in the 90s, that kind of stuff would happen, or the 2000s, the 2010, and no one would have commented. It would have just been like some crazy nerd like me being like, it's genetics. Man, we called it right out right away. Way to go, Civilization. We have learned something. But most people know that Martin and Malcolm, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, they were coming right together. Seriously, like Malcolm was moving towards Martin when he died. Martin was moving towards Malcolm when he died. And sort of the thing that kind of unified them all was they were understanding that it was really a question of class. Like they sort of went beyond sort of race. I mean, race is a big part of it, but it was really a question of class. And then they get taken out. I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm an observer of history. That's when they get taken out. That's actually the thing you can't question. Questioning white supremacy is not favored by a white supremacist society. But questioning the nature of free market capitalism, that's a thing that'll get you invaded and taken out. The flow on the next verse, so much development. And then he has a whole story. This is why I think this is the center of the album. It's his whole story where he's talking about going to go see a game between the Saints and the Falcons. He's a very good football player, went to college for that and everything. And it's about the Saints and the Falcons, which is a pretty big divisional rivalry. And he talks about in the past he used to take the Marta, which is the subway in, what does that stand for, man? Marta? Marietta, Metro Atlanta Regional Transit Authority. I'm going to go with that. Metro. So that's how he used to get to the game. Got my Jordans at the flea market. And now he's telling a story about having to park and going to the game and having his car broken into. Listen to this story. I get in my car, see some glass by the door, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? I knew what it was, the stadium right in the hood, and my window was busted. Now I feel all the blood. It's rushing. Take a second, a minute, adjustment. Had a couple things, but they ain't found my banger. They really ain't got nothing. Man, goddamn, You little, use is a word I don't use, took everything. From spare tires to the spare change, the insurance papers, and some blunt spray. Why the fuck would they want that anyway? But we in Atlanta, you could see the channels, man. That shit's gonna happen any day. Might not see bandanas, but he squeezed the hammer like he John Henry trying to beat the train. Having fun with it, bunch of young trying to feel to numb the pain. I ain't tripping because I know who's responsible. It's the motherfuckers that be claiming that gangsta. All right? It's his own story. His own goddamn car got broken into. His insurance papers were taken. He's got to deal with it. He is now on the other side. He may come from the same part of the town where the people who stole from him are. He may share the life experience as the people who robbed them do. But now he has something and he was robbed. And he feels the anger. He feels the rage. But he lets it go because he understands where this comes from. He has the proper perspective. He's able to understand that they say that you thugged out gangsta. He sees what happened and he's able to put it in context. Trying to feel something to numb the pain. And he's not tripping because he knows who's responsible. He's not sitting there saying, these young so-and-sos, I hate them. He's saying, look at what this civilization has done to us. The people who robbed him, they were being ugly. True story. I was once in Paris, part of a town called Les Halles, which is right in the center of Paris, which is connected to the outskirts, which is where most of the poor and recently immigrated people live. So it's a fascinating place because, like, kids will come in from these suburbs, which is like basically the ghetto in a lot of parts of France and Europe, and they come right into the center of the city on these trains. And there's like a weird sort of like invisible barrier around, like it only goes like one block any direction. It's kind of a spicy part of town or a sketchy part of town, but then you're in the middle of Paris, right? Escargot. So I was explaining this history. I was explaining the history of French rap to a friend of mine. I was telling her all about why this part of Paris is a little bit more dangerous and how it's all tied into the waves of immigration that come from Algeria, because Algeria was a former French colony, all these interesting things. And I'm giving this little history lesson, and some kids from the suburbs come up, okay? I think it was one black kid, one Arab kid, and one white kid, real representation of the French suburbs. They punch me in the stomach and steal my camera and run away. Was I hurt? Yeah. Was I mad? Kinda. But I was also sitting there like literally explaining to my friend, hey, here's an example of systemic inequality and the ways in which post-colonial tensions play out in the dead center of Paris. Oof. Right? I wasn't really that mad because I knew who was responsible. VCRs featuring Vince Staples. Some kazoo sound, Give Us Free. That's from Amistad. Good Spielberg movie. True story. The people who were freed at the end of Amistad went back to Africa and participated in the slave trade on the other side. Human beings. We're not always good people. Tying in more to these themes of systemic inequality, talking about a slice of the American pie will make you humble, money and power, talking about the monopoly, man. What does it mean about our culture, about our society, that our favorite board game is a game in which you buy property and try to bankrupt people because they can't pay you rent? That's the point of the game, everybody. That's our board game. We could have had Parcheesi with those elephants. We could have even had like Sorry or even Life, which is dubious on itself, or Chutes and Ladders, right? But like Monopoly, that's the game we choose. I bought this land and you can't stay here and you're going to go straight to jail? And we look up to that little Monopoly man with this hat? We look up to that little man? That man was not chosen by God. That man is cursed. That man is Satan incarnate. Monopoly man. Little smile. Rip your mustache off your face. That's what we should be saying. In reality, America is a lot more like Candyland. It's all luck, you know? Where were you born? How were you born? Just flip over the color, It's Candyland. That's what it is. All about police brutality. If they police pull me over, if I feel jeopardized, I'll put it on IG Live because only one shot could cause a second line. The second line, which comes from the Louisiana, the New Orleans tradition of a funeral, and the music. There's the people in the front line of the funeral who are being respectful and quiet and solemn, and then there's the second line who's behind those people who are celebrating the death, celebrating the life, celebrating and making music. That's the origin of New Orleans bounce music. That's maybe partly the origin of a lot of American music because a lot of American music comes from New Orleans. So one shot can cause a funeral, can cause a second line, but also like the second line is like a source of great art and creation and it's all kind of all tied in together that like the being shot by the police itself creates some kind of beautiful art and dance and joy and celebration. But is it conceptual? And then we get Vince Staples, who's the West Coast JID, right? Come on, we know he's the West Coast JID. He's just such a good rapper. He's kind of laconic. He feels like he's always almost there. When will we say Vince Staples has arrived? Everyone's talking about like, is rap okay? We have Vince Staples, Denzel Curry, JID, Doechii. All those people are under 35 years old. I think we're okay. We just need to recognize it. I think if we, as a hip-hop loving society, could just say, we're okay. We're good. We have superstars. We got Vince Staples, we got JID, we got Doechii, we got Denzel Curry. We're fine. Anyways, I love how much he understood the assignment. He's just right on theme. The money we spend leave us wanting more. That's true. But money make the continent spin, build the world in 7 days, roll to 7, get paid a line. All this number play. In JID's verse, he counts to 10, and then in Vince's verse, he counts to 12, and then JID takes over 13, and then there's more of this discussion about being saintly, about God, about forgiveness. Personally, I know nobody had never been perfect or moved perfectly. I'm praying when you see me at my worst, you see the worth in me. Battling demons, addiction, and adversity, balancing dreams internally. It's my eternity. Shout out to my friend Marlon. I talk about him all the time. Or fairly frequently. A friend I met in Marseille, American guy, super religious, the most religious person I ever met, but he never tried to convert me at all. Just by his like kindness, I was able to see the value of Christ's love, but he never once tried to convert me at all. Anyways. And then we got to take a little break. Take a little break. It's joy time, everybody. Time to skate. All right? I've never been to Skate Town. I've never been to Skate Town. I looked it up. It's a real skating rink. So is Golden Glides. This is more in that GNX area. It's joy, not just description of pain. It's also joy. Let's be honest, everybody. This is about black joy. Everyone can roller skate, but there's a particular kind of black joy that's being described here that I lack the perspective to properly contextualize. I don't understand this stuff. I don't understand the 90s sound. I don't understand the Atlantic culture that's being referenced. I don't understand the importance of roller rinks. I don't get it because it's not for me. It's not my life. It's not my lived experience. A little bit of sadness with they shooting, the violence there. But this is better than a Drake song. This is catchier than a Drake song. This is what should be number one. This is maybe the difference. This is maybe the difference between the 90s and now. If this were the 90s, this would be a big hit. Never been to Golden Glide. It's in the deck. It's true. Hey, roller skating though. Roller skating, huh? Do you know where the first NWA concert was? It was at a roller skating rink. The narrative about rap music is so focused on like poverty and misery that maybe there needs to be more space for the joy. I mean, we get a fair amount with like the house parties and the block parties, all that stuff. But like roller skating, man, Well, this getting's fun. It's fun. And then we get to What We On. So we're now in this kind of like middle section of the album where it really changed tone, kind of a killer vibe, these low sounds. And oh, by the way, if the recording stops, it's not because the cicadas got me. It's because my computer ran out of space. And I promise you, the part 2 will be linked. It'll be linked right underneath. So go find it. I think it'll be okay. But my computer doesn't have that much space. This is a long ass video. And I'm in HD, y'all. Don Toliver is just great here. Let's forgive him for Jack Boys 2, okay? Who's that guy who loves it? What's his name? What's that guy's name? XQC? Sorry, buddy. I consume, buddy. Don Toliver can be good, you know? JID is just so good, all about this worldly life. I know it ain't love, it's just what I need. I'm sipping the cup, I rinse and repeat. I sin and repent, I sin and repeat. Over and over and over again, it's about sinning and being loved and looking for God's love despite being ugly sometimes. This crazy fast beat, awesome. Wholeheartedly featuring Ty Dolla $ign and 6 Lack or Black. I have such a soft spot for Black because he was one of my first like 5 or 6 reviews. I reviewed that album of his from 2018. I loved it. It helped me to really understand a lot about music. This plodding guitar sound, great vocal fry in 6 Lack's verse. It's just fully R&B. Never switch up on me. Trust me. Love me wholeheartedly. You know, like, what is this doing here? This is what I'm saying. Julie, if you replaced this song with Animal Part 1 by Eminem, I think all the rap heads would just be saying, this is it. This is the AOTY, right? But it just gets so deep into its R&B bag here in the middle that you sort of forget what a great rap album it is. But maybe he's too real, though, to be super popular. I don't know. Then we get to No Boo featuring Jesse Reyes. Not my thing at all, but it's nice. I like it. You know, a cool verse. It's a story. It's a love story. It's a story about dating somebody who talks too much about their ex. Hey, I can relate to that. Shut up, babe. Don't ruin the moment. Aren't you tired of being alone? Don't you ever feel tired of searching for somebody like me? This is universal, okay? Finally, there's something on this album where I don't feel like my lack of understanding, my deep lack of understanding of living in America as an African American is not entirely present, because this song feels pretty universal to me. It doesn't feel like this is a specific kind of experience for a specific kind of people, but just dating in general, where you get a lot of people who are dating and are searching for people like the person right in front of them. I don't know. It's nice. And then he raps at the end in Spanish. And his Spanish is good. And it makes me happy. It's against American linguistic hegemony, English linguistic hegemony. Then the low point of the album, And We Vibing. I don't know, man. Why do we have some kind of like your vagina is a pool and I'm going to put my face in it stuff? Like, was that what we were doing the whole time, man? Is it just because Thundercat's on here? Did you just say, I got to put the Thundercat thing on here? I don't know. But I don't know. You know, maybe it's just about trying to numb the pain, as he says. Novocaine, numb the pain. Roll a J, told her throw away. All the homies say okay, okay. You know, maybe this is about like the rest of the album. It's this whole period of like it's like this pain and the feeling of being cursed by American civilization and being told that cursing is divine and is coming from God. And in the end, it's really, you know, just a little bit of fun. And then we get back to On McAfee featuring Baby Kia. Now we're back, screaming the B word. One of my lap, 2 in the trunk. Who got the K? Who got the Drake? When to pull the little J, right? Just full on, just like angry gun rap. Back to rapping, almost off beat. JID is almost off beat. He's rapping so hard. Little dog with a bark and a bite. Nice heart. Abuse and turn to dark. A nighthawk looking for food. They look at the booty. Nicer baby, the bougie B word. Look good with the light off. Bust dope moves, dope boy. 2 loose screws, 3 black little said F school, F them, F you, F dudes, tough dudes get touched too. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Oh my God. I don't even know why I wrote down all these lyrics other than the fact that they're just great. Ninja Turtle Raphael, when they caught a shell, better say a prayer when he walk into jail. The specter of the prison industrial complex is all over this album. A very fast final verse here. Someday I'm going to do a video on why Screwface Jean is maybe the best hip-hop commentator on YouTube. There's an awful lot of good ones. I mean, okay, best. I mean, I don't know. There's the rest of Culture United besides me to throw in there, and others, you know. But man, the way Screwface, if you haven't seen Screwface John's reaction to this, he's just mesmerizing. He's so good at reacting emotionally while drawing in his expertise about rap, while also injecting his insane knowledge of history and hip hop all at the same time. And he does it on the fly. It is just something to behold. And he managed to find success because he's so good at communicating the emotion. He's so good at communicating the candy that you don't even notice the medicine, but the medicine is really there. And this is the part where he describes how chopping works, the style of rap, you know, chopping, where everything's super fast. And he just describes this really well. What was he saying? He's saying this is why he couldn't be in the studio with JID, because he'd be wearing out his shirt from pulling on him, just saying, it's crazy how hype he is. I feel that. And then there's this whole bit here about the survivor's guilt that goes back again to God's, who does God choose and who do they not? My still in the hood. He's just one of the guys. He's getting sick of the bull, wanted 100,000, but he be good. 100,000 rounds, 100 down, a bloodhound. Think that a blood now. He bang guns and take crumbs. He bugged out. Don't even try to show him another route. He been thugging since a youngin'. He know since it was coming. Ugly. Right? This is a guy who is ugly. This is a guy who is banging guns to take crumbs. He's putting his life in danger, risking a life in jail, risking death for crumbs. That's the reality of the system that we have. Of Blue is the next song. I don't even know what's going on here. This is like the inverse, or this is like a parallel somehow to the first track, because the beat changes are so dramatic and so unsettling. This swinging with I believe in miracles, and then he starts coughing, and there's this whiny guitar, and all of a sudden he's talking about being an artist. He's talking about his pain as an artist, about trying to write, about going to a cabin and trying to write. Jack Torrance, The Shining, that's what he's trying to do. He's talking about going out to the woods and bringing weed and bringing snow to the blizzard, or bringing blow to the snow, because he's like in a cabin in the snow and he's trying to write, but he's going crazy because he's doing too much coke, and he's doing coke and he's trying to write, and he's trying to write, and he's doing coke, but you don't see nothing he admired in the mirror that he's looking in while he's sniffing up the blow there. White lines don't do it. He's silently insecure, sniffing white lines pure, writing a line, sniff a white line pure, writing a line, sniff a white line pure. It's like getting into the mind of somebody who is suffering from cocaine addiction, who has that feel, that repetitiveness that you need when you do such a fast-acting and addictive drug as cocaine. And sniff a white line pure, right, pure and secure, just going around in a circle. Reminds me of that PSA when I was a kid that scared the hell out of me, where they're like, I do cocaine so I can work longer, so I can make more money, so I can buy more cocaine, so I can work longer, so I can make more money, so I can buy more cocaine. So, right? It just goes around in a circle, in a circle, in a circle, in a circle, right? Oh my God. So he's talking about the back half of this album is a lot about his artistic process and whether or not he has made it and what is he. You read the Bible much? It's given, much required. So this is tying into Luke 12:48, to whom much is given, much will be required. Sermons, I don't know. To whom much is given, much is required. This is JID's sermon about having to accept his life. Battling life he lost before has conquered his fear. What if heaven was hell and vice versa, a verse of vices? What if heaven was hell, vice versa, a verse of vices? That's what this is. These are verses of his vices, of what he's going through as he's trying to make it. Clowns in a circus circle around. You've been in bondage, breaking and burglar, stealing swag. She's steady climbing. all about heaven and hell and like this American paradise that we live in that's also kind of a hell, and that we're in bondage and that we're not free. And earlier in the album, he talked about reading the Bible, and that's the only way to make you free. This kind of spiritual thing he's looking for is the way to break out of the bondage, like actual bondage of like actually being in jail, but actually really more emotional bondage of breaking free of this kind of weird capitalistic hellscape that has us believing we need to keep sniffing more lines to be more pure to try and make it. Speaking encouragement to the family is by design. She wearing designer, learn to see life on the other side. If heaven was hell, never rebel from the side of God. You've been led to prevail. Following idols that's falsified is the deadliest trail. He's just preaching here, everybody. I'm sorry to say, this is just preaching. Okay, what if I said it like a preacher? Never rebel from the side of God. You've been led to prevail. Following idols that's falsified is the deadliest trail. All about like how what you should look for is a simple life, not the life of glory and ambition, not the life of being the top. Simplest life, husband and wife, pride on the shelf. It's something I like. It's time to retire my belt. Trying to write a happy ending story, what I'm seeing, something more than heaven, hell, or purgatory. Essentially saying that the desire to be one of those guys, to have the belt, to be the number one rapper, to be the number one anything, to be the richest, to have the most, to win the game of America, to win the Monopoly game where you own all the houses and everyone's got to pay you rent. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's nothing compared to this life that he is describing. Simplest life, husband of wife with pride on the shelf. I love it. And then in the end, we have the preacher coming back. I'm looking forward to that safe house. I can't wait to get there. Can you? I can't wait to be in that place. Now, I think they're talking about heaven, but also I think it's talking about JID, talking about heaven on earth, and that heaven on earth is not being the super rich multimillionaire in your penthouse, surrounded by people you can't trust and can't love, just trying to chase after fame and approval. It's being in a house where you feel safe with people you love and care about. A life of quiet dignity. Unbelievable. And then they throw an extra verse on there. Ever since the preacher tell me sinners in the 199.99 and he can save your soul, say it ain't so, sold us down the road, directly tying into the prosperity gospel, directly tying into this idea that preachers tell us that if you give them money then you can be saved and then they'll be rich, which is a sign that they're saved. And then if you're lucky, sometimes on my videos bots will come in and just do this whole thing like, if you pray for me I'll give you money. I know God gives the heaviest load to the strongest soldiers, and I know this, I might as well assume the role, try to lead us land of milk and honey, word to Moses, step into light because it gets as dark as the ocean. In the lion's den, I resemble David. I think he means Daniel, but I don't know. I repent the sin. There's a whole sports analogy. I got to watch myself. A beautiful life, an ugly cycle. I got to stop myself. So he has to go for this beautiful life, stay away from this ugly cycle of searching for fame and wealth. I'm bleeding, take a beating. We come from the Bible Belt. Indeed, I could never leave it. I see nobody to help. Strategic, you the reasoning achieved. They didn't believe in him. Succeed, I swim in the deep again. I'm sinking. When can I breathe again? The fatigue is setting in. I can speak in telekinesis, telling God what I need. I fall on my knees and stand on my feet. He's literally talking about like being in the ocean. This is almost like Mac Miller style stuff, right? Like he's swimming in the deep and he's treading water and he's trying not, but the fatigue is setting in and he's like falling and he's falling as far as he possibly can. And then he falls on his knees, and then by falling to his knees and praying to God, he gets what he needs and stands on his feet. I'm back on the road. The sinner, repent, repeat. The sinner, repent, repeat. The sinner, repent. I got to see through till it's finished. I got a sentence we up against, blank period. Where's the promethazines? I've been searching for something with substance. I'm clearly coming up with nothing, but fuck it, I'll go where the love is. I think that's the play. Doesn't even rhyme at the end because it's so important, because what he's saying is he's going up against all these things, trying to find the substance, trying to find something to numb himself, trying to find the promethazine, trying to find something up against the sentence of a blank period, up against the sentence of death or jail, up against some kind of finality that is ugly and terrible, but he has to go to where the love is, because that's the truth. That's how you break out of anything. You just follow love, whether it's love of God or love of humanity or love of somebody that you're with. That's the way out. That's the play. That's why it doesn't rhyme anywhere. The man makes 1,000 rhymes all over the place, but all of a sudden that's the play. He takes you out of the rhyme on purpose so that you understand. It's the love. That's the whole point. I didn't even mention how good the bass is on this song. Listen to the bass on this song. Sin, repent, repeat. Then we get to K-Word, featuring Pastor Troy. Not a fan of some of the things Pastor Troy has said about my gay brothers and sisters. But anyways, God loves gay people too. Hate to tell you. And likes them. Hate to tell you. But more kind of Spanish guitars here, lilting sounds, whirling piano. It's funny because it's called the K-Word. And so it's like, oh, so what's this word going to be? And I sort of thought of a story once when I wanted to learn about swears. You know, when you're a kid and you want to learn about swear words, what are bad words? And I asked my mom, I said, what's the worst swear word? I remember where I was, driving in Belmont, Massachusetts, to where there used to be a parking lot where there's now a fire department, because no one ever votes against fire departments, even though they probably should, because it takes up too much money, but it doesn't matter. We were driving right by there, and I said, what's the worst swear? She said, well, dear, swearing isn't that bad. A worse thing is sin. I was like, oh, really? Oh, cool. What's the worst sin? She's like, killing. Murder. I was like, no. Like, I wanted to learn something, like that was my mom giving me a good lesson there. So I thought maybe that was the K-word. No, the K-word is karma. It's kind of divine intervention, punishment. This is kind of tied into like whether or not there's some kind of cosmic force that tells us that punishes or rewards our action. Kind of like death and Final Destination. I'll give you my ranking of Final Destination movies because I just watched all 6 of them in the past week. Super tired verse. I think the promethazine from the last verse is affecting his rapping. He can't even make it through. Karma's good, karma's, and then Pastor Troy comes in, the great kind of Master P yelling style. Beautiful interlude, singing little piano, all these beat changes, and he's just rapping about karma. He's rapping about karma, the idea that something will punish you. It's interesting because karma is not a Christian belief. But one could say that it's in the Bible. There's interesting ways of thinking about like whether or not the Bible indicates that you get directly punished for your bad actions. Up in the skies, the biggest lies say you got nothing but time, the biggest crime. Just beautiful lyrics and beautiful, just the style. Let's take 1 second to just appreciate the style. Karma's about to score a movie. Karma, Scorsese. Run it up. Fuck you. Run it up. Pay me. Scorsese, fuck you, pay me. That's from Casino, Scorsese movie. Just the way that he has this rhyme. So if karma coming back for what we done, then I believe it. But for now, I'm on the path to spread love and do good. We done so much fucked up stuff, we got used to it, just like Baby Mama in month 9 pushed through it. I swear this shit a vibe. God, we trust music. So I think that's what this is. I think this is about those who have done ugly. I think that is saying that maybe if you've done ugly, maybe if you've been ugly, maybe you'll be punished, but maybe not. Maybe, maybe not. For now, I'm on the path to spread love and do good. That's what he's doing. He's on the path to spread love and do good. You say you're on demon time, and I think you sound foolish. So karma exists as this thing that is like lurking, and he's trying to find his purpose, as he says. And he's trying to fight through it. And he's trying to just be positive. And he gets angry. And he gets angrier throughout this verse. I've been on an influx of FNs influencing the hood. It's in ruins. Karma come round. The whole crowd start booing like they seen a ghost, a poltergeist. The night's brewing. It's frightful. Attention, you can slice a knife through it. Probably need the jaws of life to bite through it. I ain't frightened, so I fight through it. If I do it right, I can end the cycle here tonight because I saw the light. Trying to end the cycle of ugliness. Trying to set people right, trying to help people see the light. Beautiful. My ranking of Final Destination movies from worst to best. 4, 5, 2, 6, 3, 1. For Keeps is the final track. This is the mixture between Gloria and the Heart Part 6. It's about the importance of rhyming. It's about the importance of rap, while also it's about his journey. And I love it because it ties everything together from the opening lines that he gave about people caring about sales. Like, did he make it? I don't have my yes or no sheet because it's flown across the deck with all the wind. I'm going to have to get it so I don't litter. This is for the diehards and casuals alike that press play as soon as the clock strikes midnight. That's the energy that keeps on the lights. Keeping on the lights, the idea of keeping on the lights is that like the energy, like when you say keep the lights on, it means that's how you get money, that's how you pay for stuff, that's how you buy stuff. But here he's saying what keeps the lights on, it's a spiritual thing. It's the connection between the artist and the art. It's the thing that matters. It doesn't matter if he moves 500,000 units in the first week. That's not how we know JID made it. We know JID made it when he makes it. He makes this art. That energy that we all feel listening to this music, that joy, the smile that was on my face, for most of this album, that's the energy. That's what's making it. That's what's keeping on the lights. That's the great anti-capitalist message, which is that there's something more important than money, spirit. Beautiful story of like working at Domino's. At Domino's, writing rhymes in the back of a timesheet. Bosses would grind teeth at me falling behind. Props go to Open Mike Eagle, one of the best rap albums of the year. Neighborhood Gods Unlimited. The song my coworker Clark Kent's Secret Black Box. The video's out now. You should go watch it. It's really good. It's very tied into this theme right here. I'd be happy just to get 10 clicks on a track. The appreciation of an artist. I was just talking to Sad Part about the rapper Fake Mink and a story about how Fake Mink in the early days, Sad Part had a friend who liked Fake Mink's song on Bandcamp, on SoundCloud. And Fake Mink tracked him down and sent him a message saying, "Thank you for liking my song." Okay, this is a guy now who has a Drake cosign and has over 1 million monthly listeners now. But in the beginning, he would literally find everybody who liked his song and send them a message. Fundamentally, that's what all artists are. Artists are just looking for a way, just looking for validation, looking to be taken seriously, looking for their art to be taken seriously, not just as a unit to be sold, but as an experience to be lived. And then it ends with him talking to his kid saying, "Daddy got the best bars in the world." Yes, his son or daughter says. I can't tell, children's voices. Come on. Did I cry? You damn straight I cried. Sometimes I'm sitting here working on my computer. I was typing on this computer. My computer, my 3-year-old comes up, tries to close the computer. She wants to make a maze for these little cars that we have. And I said, well, I got to keep working on this. She said, "What you working on, Poppy?" I said, well, I'm talking about music. Oh, I have 2 jobs, right? Like I go and I teach. I go to the place where I teach, and then I talk about music. I make videos where I talk about music. I said, "Oh, what you saying about the music?" And I said, "I'm saying lots of things, But part of me wants to say to her, your dad is an amazing music reviewer. I want her to have that pride in me and to know that, like, her dad does something important and good. That's how he ends the album. At the beginning of the album, we have West Side Gun saying, "You don't even take care of your kids," like attacking you for not taking care of your kids. And then this is here. And this is what matters. This is the true blessing. His audience, the people who love his music, and the love that he has in his family. That's it. It's not money. It's not fame. You are not blessed by money. I'm just going to say it. You're blessed by God. Okay? And if you're blessed by God, it will not be shown by money. It will be shown by love and art. As he said in his interview, hip-hop is literally the best thing on earth. Is it a masterpiece? Of course it is. God damn it. These are my super subscribers on YouTube. You can join them. These are my Patreons. They help. I actually just ordered the signed version of this album. I was excited. I thought it was all sold out, but they still have copies of it on Complex. I'm not sponsored, but I believe in supporting artists. And I think JID is one of the greatest artists out there. My God, the cicadas are going absolutely nuts. So I'm glad the video's over. Ooh, I have to go to the farmer's market now. Sweet. I kind of hate the farmer's market. But, good produce in the summer. What are you going to do? All right, until next time. 1 hour, 38 minutes. Thank you for riding with me. You didn't watch this all in one, did you? Tell me how many sittings did it take you to watch this far. All right, until next time, there's the camera.